Hi, everyone. It's your girl Sarah back today with a summary of all of the books that I read in June. And we're going to get into it. I'm going to give you all the thoughts, feelings, opinions, and I'm going to give you the highs and lows. I'm going to give you the recommendations and the save your times. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, so let's talk about the first book that I watched, or sorry, that okay, let's talk about the first book that I finished in June, and that was Save One Thing by Julia Wolf. This was released in May of 2023, and this is the first book in the Savage Academy series. So, Julia Wolf has brought us the Savage River High, I believe. I don't know. I haven't read that series, but Savage River High and then Savage U series, two separate series. And now this opens up the Savage Academy. So this book, Save One Thing, follows Beckett and Luciana. Now this is a new adult. It's an academia, I guess you would call it, because it is set in an academy, and it's a private like prep school, and they live in dorms, so they're really on campus a lot. And so that's just one thing to know. That's the kind of genre there, the trope. And this is a high school enemies to lovers. He falls first story. So the way that the way that we meet when we meet Beckett and Luciana is actually when I think they're both in like middle school at the time. Luciana is Helen's sister, and we meet Helen in Soft Like Thunder. And Beckett is Julian's brother from, I think he's Real Like Daydreams is the book that Julian is from. So we actually met Beckett in Real Like Daydreams. So they are both attending a party at one of their, I think it's Julian's house, and they meet and they get to talking and they have a miscommunication, and Luciana thinks that Becca hates her. And then turns out she is recruited to play field hockey at Savage Academy, and his family like started Savage Academy, so he's a soccer player there. So they're both student athletes, and so they go to the school, and Luciana actually avoids Beckett because she thinks he hates her, but in fact, he does not hate her. So we get to see how they meet, kind of the source of a, you know, miscommunication, and then their story unfolds from there. The thing that I really enjoyed about this story was Luciana was, she's Helen's sister, but she's not Helen. It's not like a copy cutter or a copycat cookie cutter of Helen. And I thought was developed really well. She was a really interesting, nice person, really dedicated, and not mean, but just kind of like not interested in any like really dating scenario. So it wasn't like Beckett was the only one that she was rejecting. She was just like focusing on school and sports. And she actually came from kind of a trailer park upbringing until Helen really kind of adopted her. Not technically, but Luciana did, I think, live with Helen and Theo from Soft Like Thunder for many years before she started at Savage Academy. So, she's trying to move past her kind of really poverty stricken upbringing. So, anyway, their story was really, really interesting, and it really, I think, unfolds well. We get to see kind of why he would have feelings for her and what made her fall for him. And they actually also or Julia, the author does a good job of keeping any kind of consummation until they're both 18. So I appreciated that personally as a middle-aged mother to a toddler. I just kind of don't read high school stories anymore where the characters are underage. So I really like this book. The spice level, I gave it 2 out of 5. stars. The story I gave 4 out of 5 stars, and I did give the story or the book overall. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So I'm very excited for the next one, which comes out. I don't know. I think it's like October or November or something crazy like that. But that's fine. All right. Then I read Contempt by A. Zavarelli. I think her name is Ashley, but she goes by A. Zavarelli. This was published in April of 2023. This book is 554 pages long. This story follows Madden and Lyric, and it is so this story follows Madden and Lyric. It's an enemies to lovers second chance romance, and this is actually also a former military, former rock star romantic suspense. Actually, so there's a lot going on, as you would imagine. You could cram into 554 pages. Yeah. So the story opens with both Madden and Lyric being like patients at a residential mental health facility, and they're both in high school. And the thing that is so interesting about the romantic suspense is that those chapters are only from Madden's point of view. So those chapters that are in the past with them being in this mental health facility are only from Madden's point of view. So hence the romantic suspense. One thing to note about the structure of the book is that the chapters alternate between past and present. So past, present, past, present, past, present. And when we are finally met, so Madden meets Bianca. Okay, this is like a whole confusing thing. So Madden meets a woman named Bianca in the residential facility. There, they fall in love, and he gets out. She stays there, and then they are reunited later. And there's a connection that they have that they didn't know about while they were in the facility, and it causes a lot of tension and drama. And their relationship is like really on the rocks once they're both out of the facility and they are reunited. And then fast forward in the present, we meet Lyric, and she doesn't remember she's has a memory of the past 5 years only, and she's like mid to late 20s in the story. We find her living on the streets of Las Vegas, busking. And like I said, she doesn't remember, beyond just the past 5 years. And so she goes by Lyric. And when Madden and Lyric cross paths, Maddox is like, that's Bianca. And he ends up kidnapping her and taking her back. Oh, this is also a motorcycle. This is an MC romance too. So, second chance, enemies to lovers, motorcycle, former rock star, military. It's a lot. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to the kind of the summary. So Madden takes Lyric back to the compound and proceeds to really like force her to try to remember and he's like convinced that she's Bianca. She's like, I'm not her. Gosh darn it, I look like her. He's got pictures of her all over his wall. And so, we spend a lot of time with them developing their relationship between Maddox and Lyric. And then we do have a resolution and we find out what happened. The kind of the drama that would make this be a romantic suspense, right? So the thing about this book is that it is really long, and there are, I didn't realize it was going to be that long when I started reading it. Zavarelli as the author is pretty much like a one, like I'll read the sample just to make sure I'm interested in the storyline, but I think she's a good writer, so I'll read her books, much more likely to read her books. This was so long. I was kind of like resentful of it because I was like, wow, I'm just not reading anything else. And I had like 4 books going at one point, and I just kind of would put this one down and pick another one up because it was, there were many, many chapters that I felt were extraneous. Just really didn't need to be in there. So that's my feeling about that. I will also comment that the kind of alternating between past and present in each chapter, or each chapter alternating between past and present, because it's romantic suspense, that actually really worked. Now, I've read stories where that kind of past present structure was used and it didn't work. So I have to give it to the author. I did like that part of this story. I thought the story was compelling. Obviously, I finished it, you know, but it was like compelling enough for me to read it, but ultimately it wasn't the most satisfying. So I gave the spice level on this book is 3 out of 5 stars. The story itself, I gave 3 out of 5, and so I gave this a book 3 stars overall. Okay, the next story that I finished was Silenced by Serena Ackroyd. This is, I believe, her latest release. Was published in June of 2023 and is 416 pages, but I think that's about average for Serena Ackroyd. I think she writes meatier books. This follows Nikolai and Cassie. Her full name is Cassiopeia, but she goes by Cassie. And we met her in, I don't remember which book. We met her in the 5 Points Mob series. She's a friend of Savannah, whatever Daniels, I think is the heroine's name from the 5 Points. I don't remember. Savannah. She's Savannah's friend. And so we met her there. So this is Cassiopeia's story. So the book opens with Nikolai, who is the leader of the Miami Bratva. He is in Kentucky. He's like pursuing some person, and that they get led to Kentucky, and they go to this, seedy motel, and he finds Cassie drugged and bound, and I think she's like nearly naked on the floor of this hotel. And he sees her, and he like claims her instantly. She's mine. So she's drugged, but he takes great care to, pick her up gently, be very, very gentle with her, make sure the men don't really look at her. He covers her up. He takes her back to Miami I was going to say Florida, but he takes her back to Miami on the plane, and she wakes up and she's like, "Who are you? What's going on?" And, it's basically a Hades and Persephone retelling, kind of Beauty and the Beast as well, because he takes her to the compound and doesn't really let her go anywhere. Maybe it is pretty purely Hades and Persephone. I don't really know. But anyway, so the story is really I think it does a great job of building up their relationship. You really get the spice between them. He's actually mute, and she can read sign language. So they have a good way of communicating. There's some interesting backstory about her family that she didn't know that gets revealed in the story. It makes it really interesting. And this is actually I think this is the first book in the Lost Boys. Yeah, the Lost Boys series. I think that's right. Anyway, it's a new series, of course. Serena Ackroyd, I don't think she does standalones. I think it's just all series. But basically, it's we're going to kind of get more stories about all of the side characters that we meet in Silenced. I did enjoy the story. It's like funny because I finished it after it was 400 pages, and I finished it after I read a 550-page book. And I was kind of going back and forth between Silenced and Contempt, the super long one that I didn't love. And so this one just kind of took a little bit more, it didn't grip me, right? So the spice level was 3 stars out of 5. I gave the story 4 out of 5 stars. So I did give this a 3.5-star rating. So that's that. And then the next book I read was Reckless by Elsie Silver. This was published in June of 2023. This is 404 pages. I didn't mind that about this story. So this is book 4 of the Chestnut Springs series. This story follows Winter and Theo. Now, Winter is the sister of Summer, who we met. I believe we met her in Flawless, the first book of the Chestnut Springs series. And Theo is Rhett's from Flawless, Rhett's protege. He's a bull rider. So this is an enemies to lovers surprise baby story. So the story opens up. It's a snowy night. Winter is leaving her home in whatever town like major city that Chestnut Springs is outside of in Canada. And she's driving to her sister's for Christmas. Now, the thing about this story is because she's married to Rob, I think, Rob Valentine, I think is his name, who has some role in Flawless that gets talked about quite a bit in the story. I did I did not finish Flawless. I DNF'd the sample. So I didn't read it. So I've read Hopeless and Reckless out of this series. I didn't read Flawless or Heartless. I was just like DNF'd Flawless, didn't care to read Heartless, whatever. So anyway, so that backstory gets kind of talked about, but it doesn't go into a lot of details. If you don't read Flawless, you don't actually know really like deeply what happened between Summer and Winter's husband. I still kind of am like, he's a creep, but all right. So anyway, so Winter happens upon Theo at a gas station, kind of have an interaction. She's kind of prickly. So it's like kind of a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, and he's, Mr. Suave Casanova, and she's like, whatever, eye roll, drives away, and then they end up at Summer's place for Christmas, and she's like, oh great. So they have kind of whatever interaction they have at Christmas. It's not super notable, so I'm not going to go into it. But then they end up staying at the same hotel in Chestnut Springs. So it turns into a one night situation that results in a baby. And they're for part of the so they their tryst results in a baby, but Theo doesn't know. Theo doesn't know. So there's a time jump, and Theo comes back into town, and come to find out, Winter has a baby, finds out it's his. He's devastated, and then we kind of follow their relationship as it builds, and they do fall for one another, obviously. So I really liked this story. I liked Theo. I thought he was really kind of adorable. He was sunshiny, and it was like kind of believable. Like sometimes you're like, yeah, right, nobody acts like that, but no, he was cool. I would want to be his friend if he were real. And I even kind of liked Winter because I got it. Like based on kind of her backstory, I kind of understood her prickliness, and could see like the way that she was developed as a character. You could see underneath it. So her like attitude and the way that she interacted in the world made sense to me. Okay. So I liked it. So the spice in this book was 3 out of 5 stars. Again, it's spicy. Not like super long. No, this isn't one of those books that has like a whole chapter of scenes, right? And nothing outlandish, right? The story is 4 out of 5 stars. The story is 4.5 stars for me. I really did like this story. So I gave this 4.25 stars. This is my Star Search rating. So that was Reckless by Elsie Silver. And then the next story that I finished was Crimson River by Devney Perry. This is the latest book of the Edens series. This is book 6. This was published in June of 2023. And this is a romantic suspense, friends with benefits situation in which they catch feelings. So the story follows Lila and Vance. And Lila is the victim of a near-death strangulation. And Vance is a detective who has been following the trail of the killer or the near killer that matches the description of the perpetrator of the strangulation against Lila. So he comes into town, Quincy, I think, and he recognizes Lila. He goes into her coffee shop and recognizes her as the victim just based on the bruising and the kind of the way it affected her eyes. So she looks like she's been attacked and strangled. And so he starts having a conversation with her. And she participates in his search for this perpetrator. And then the story unfolds from there. So, we have a lot of backstory about Vance, which is, I think, pretty interesting. And Lila, I mean, I think from a character development standpoint, she wasn't developed as well as Vance. And so there's that. And also, the timeline for the story for me is kind of short. It's like a couple of months. And it actually ends up being, I think, like 6 months total, but there's half of that time they're separate, they're apart. So I don't know. It wasn't quite insta love, but it was like leaning towards there. So I was a little like, oh. And I liked it. I actually think this was the best one out of the Eden series that I've read. Now, mind you, I didn't read Indigo Ridge or whatever the second one was. I didn't read the second one. I read Garnet Flats, Jasper Vale, and Crimson River. And this one was my favorite. And I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars on the spice level. This was a 4 out of 5 star story, and so I did end up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. So yeah, okay. Then the next book that I finished was Machiavellian Prince by Bella de Corte. This was published in June of 2023. So this is the first book of the Next Generation series from the Fausti family. Okay. I gotta take a drink. Hold on. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay. So if you haven't read the Fausti family saga, you gotta do it. I mean, just because you don't to read this story, but it really, really helps because that story is a saga. It's like 8 books. I think I estimated the page count for the Fausti family saga to be around, is it 4,000 pages? Something like that. I think one of the books was like 800 pages. Yeah. It's a whole thing. And, so Mia in the Machiavellian Prince is our heroine, and she is the daughter of Scarlett and Brando Fausti. And Saverio, our hero, is the son from Mac and Mari, who are the hero and heroine in Bella de Corte's Machiavellian. You may have seen that around. That one's, I think, probably her most famous book. So those two kind of like organized crime family kind of stories in the whole Bella de Corte world unite inside of the Machiavellian Prince. So the story opens up with Mia starting as the principal ballerina in Paris I think it's the Paris Opera Ballet, and Saverio comes and he's part of the security team for her family. So her family, the Faustis, are a renowned mafia family. They are known as royals in Italy, one of the most powerful mafia families in the world, most powerful families in the world, period. So she, of course, needs security as a princess and inside this family, right? And Saverio is the perfect person to become part of the security team. Now, they actually met when she was much younger. He's, I think, probably about 4 or 5 years older than she is. And they had a connection that frightened her when she was so young. And so she decided to just focus on ballet. But I think with the Machiavellian Prince, there's about a 10-year gap in between when they first meet and when we kind of meet them again in this story. So it's interesting. It's kind of like a fated arranged marriage, not fate like phase or anything like that, but just like they were kind of always meant to be together kind of a scenario. Arranged marriage, bodyguard, mafia story, kind of a lot complicated storyline for sure. And one of the major kind of plot points is that somebody wants Mia dead. So there's something going on there. And the thing about that aspect of the story is that the resolution of that storyline in this story resolves a storyline in the Fausti family saga that did not get resolved. So are you with me? Are you tracking? It's complicated. It's worth it. It's really, really great. I'm going to actually do a video going over Bella de Corte's work, some of my favorites. But there's a lot going on. So I really recommend you read her work, just anything, and then just read what you want. But if you do decide to read the Fauci family, you want to start with Man of Honor. That's the first book. You have to read them in order. You can't pick up one of the middle ones. You'll be lost. Okay. So this is definitely an over-the-top, jealous, possessive hero, but a spine of steel heroine. She's great. I just really liked both of these characters. Just aside from the fact that I really, really enjoy this world, Mia and Severio as characters, I think are really strong. So anyway, the spice of the story, 3 out of 5 stars. That's right, I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I did give this 4.25 stars in the Star Search rating scale. I did really enjoy this book. Okay, so the next book that I finished was Made in Malice by Albany Walker. So this was published in June of 2023. This book is 350 pages. Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is book 1 of the Corrupt Credence series. So this is a new adult series. It's opening up kind of a why choose relationship, I think. And I'll say more about that later. So we meet, what is her name? Shit. Hold on. Hold on. Oh no, I'm gonna have to edit this. Are we recording? Okay. Hold on. What's her name? It's Snova and Lucian. Okay. So we meet Nova, who is our heroine. So we meet Nova, our heroine, in the Michigan town that she's living, barely scraping by, working as a waitress. She's an orphan. Her parents had passed away, I think, before she turned 18. So when we do meet Nova, I think she's like 19 or 20. And like I said, working as a waitress. And she gets approached by an attorney that gives her some information about grandparents that she has that she didn't know about. She thought her parents were also orphans. So this is news to her. And it turns out that her grandparents are very, very wealthy. And they're inviting her to live with them in their estate, which is on a private island off the coast of Georgia. So she decides to take him up in this offer. She's like, I'm freaking broke. I don't have any family. What do I have to lose? So she travels to their estate and meets them, finds it very odd at the just kind of right away. She said they're nice enough, but it's kind of odd. They don't interact a lot. So she's like, okay, well, this is a little weird, but better than what was going on with me back in Michigan. And then part of the perk of being with her grandparents is that she gets enrolled in a private college called Keju College, which is a university. And she gets the perks of being enrolled just because she's a member of, it turns out, the founding family on this island and for this college. And she's like really excited about it because she wants to study. So starts attending class, and then pretty quickly she meets a neighbor named Lucian. I don't remember his last name, but he apparently is also a member of a founding family, a different founding family, and their families are at odds. Now she doesn't know him, she doesn't know the background, so she's just kind of like, "What's your problem, dude? Leave me alone." She doesn't really take his crap, but he starts to kind of sniff around her a little bit more, and she kind of has to like just deal with his attention, even though she doesn't like it. And they end up befriending one another in kind of a weird way. And it turns out he has a twin brother. So the three of them become friends against her grandparents' advice. So the thing to know about this book is that it's book one of a series and it ends on a cliffhanger. And nothing really happens until the very end. Nothing happens. So I gave this book 1 out of 5 stars. The story is 3 out of 5. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because I did read it really quickly. I enjoyed it, but no spice, really. Nothing really happens. It's really just kind of setting the scene for what's going to happen in subsequent books. I don't even think it's going to get resolved in the second book. I mean, who knows? But it was like really a surprise that it ended on a cliffhanger and it ended the way that it did. So just know that going into it, that listen, it's enjoyable, but if you don't like cliffhangers, just wait until the next book comes out. I don't remember the name of it. It's Created in Chaos, I think is the name of the second book. And that releases in early September. Okay. And then I read Wrong Pucking Number by C.R. Jane. This was published in May of 2023. And this is a hockey stalker romance. This book is 390 pages. So the story follows Lincoln, who is the bad boy of hockey in, I think in Atlanta. They're in Dallas. It's in Dallas. And then also Monroe, our heroine. Now she is poor, struggling. She's like 20 in this when the story starts. And she, excuse me, edit. Okay. I need another drink. Okay. She is 20. She's poor. She's struggling, but she's, doing what she has to do to get by. She has a couple of jobs and she's in school. And she's actually somebody who ran away from Houston, settled in Dallas, grew up in foster care, escaped a potential, abusive situation. So she's pretty closed off, just kind of trying to get through her life. Now, we have an over-the-top, jealous, possessive heroine we have an over-the-top, jealous, possessive hero, a down-on-her-luck heroine. And the way that they meet is Lincoln actually texts Monroe, but it's like a miscommunication. Like he misdials the number and texts her instead of some other chick. And she comes back with a witty response. So they start a kind of a texting relationship until he sees a picture of her. She sends like a partial picture, and whatever she sent, he liked because he's like, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And so he sets out to find everything out about her. And then they do meet and they start in a relationship because he's like really handsome. She's really enjoyed their interactions so far. She's like, wow, I can't believe he's so cute. He's really famous and rich. And she doesn't care so much about the rich part, but she is like, well, this is pretty great. Doesn't know about all the stalking. So there's that. So this story is about him winning her over, right? So the spice on this story is 3 out of 5 stars. I give the story aspect, right, 4 out of 5 stars. And so overall, I gave the book 3.5 stars out of 5. I did really like it. But there was just something that was a little, I think the resolution, like it could have been juicier just with all the backstory and the side characters. There could have been like some juicier like tension and drama. And it was fine. It was good. It was fine. But kind of just fell a tiny bit flat for me. So 3.5 stars. And then the last book that I finished was Dangerous Innocence by Cora Riley. This was published in May of 2023. This is 417 pages long. So this is book 1 in the 5-Leaf Clover series. And this is Irish Mafia. This is also forced marriage between our characters Lorcan and Ashlyn, our heroine. So Ashlyn is raised in Dublin, and she ends up coming to New York to find her sister, who had moved to New York to become a model and has gone out of communication. Like she isn't returning any of Ashlyn's calls. So Ashlyn leaves behind her mother and her sister's child, so her nephew, in Dublin. So she ends up turning up at the doorstep of her um, uncle, who's her mother's brother, and they're estranged. He is a priest in New York, and he ends up being the confessor for an Irish mafia clan. I guess we can call it organized crime, because I feel like mafia is an Italian word and they are Irish. But that's just so. He is the confessor for the Devaney clan, of which Lorcan is the boss. So Lorcan is the boss. He's the boss. I've seen an underboss. He's high up there. He's high up there. Okay, so she doesn't know that she actually has ties to this family when she moves to New York. So she goes to some seedy places looking for her sister, and she ends up stumbling into an auction where she auctions herself for the night. She didn't know that's what she was doing, and Lorcan bids on her. So that's how they kind of start their relationship. And because of the history between her family and the Devaneys, she is forced into a marriage to repay a debt. So that's how that goes. Now, the spice level in this story, I gave 2.5 stars out of 5. It's fine. Not a lot, but it's fine. The story I gave 3.5 stars out of 5. I did give this story overall 3 stars out of 5. So the thing that was so interesting is I haven't read Cora Riley in a while, and I'm remembering the thing that I like my little complaint about her writing, which is that it's like really accessible, and that's fine, right? But I'd read so many like richly written books this month that to read a Cora Riley book was like taking a couple of steps down in reading level. Um, and so that was like disappointing. And Lorcan, I didn't really like. I didn't think he was believable as the head of an Irish organized crime clan. I didn't really. I was like, okay, like sure. I just didn't believe the way that he was toward her. I just didn't think it was feasible. So anyway, will I read the next one? Probably, probably. This one was okay. It was okay. So if you like Cora Riley, you'll probably enjoy this. It won't. It's not her best, and it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. So that's what I read in June. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, feelings, opinions about these books. Let me know if you have any desire for videos about the authors that I read this month. I said I would be doing a video on Bella de Corte. I also want to do a deep dive on Julia Wolf and A. Zavarelli as well. So let me know any authors that you might find interesting that you want to kind of do a deep dive on. All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.